Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the MyFootballWriter podcast, whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening to us on Spotify. We are back after a small summer break, but we do actually have quite a lot to talk about because Ben Knapper has been a very, very busy boy. We might not have Emi Buendia, but we have something just as good. We have Will Grant and Henry Miller with us this morning or afternoon or evening or whenever you're watching this. For the two of you, Will, Henry, how have you been on this small little summer break, and how are you coping with this impending heat wave where it is absolutely sweltering in my room?
Well, it's absolutely lovely weather, isn't it? That boxer would say, it's stupendous weather. So I've forgotten his name.
Oh God, Chris Eubank.
Chris Eubank, of course it is. Yes. So as Chris Eubank would say, it is stupendous weather, and yeah, I've just been having a great time. Really, I went to Krakow for 2 nights with my girlfriend. That was lovely. But yeah, back now, and looking forward to the summer and everything that Norwich City have thrown our way, because I really like what we've done so far.
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you, Jack. I just do think it's quite ironic that we do and choose to do a podcast probably on the hottest day of the year. So only here at MFW we do that. But I'm blessed to be back with you guys, and hopefully it's the start of the building blocks to a good season ahead.
Well, we've got to make the most of this really sunny weather, because by December, when we're 16th in the league and losing to Wrexham and it's snowing in North Wales, then we'll be looking back on this and thinking, I'd like a slice of that cake. But anyway, obviously, sort of since we've had the last podcast, we have obviously appointed Liam Manning. That is confirmed, because Will and I spoke about it on our Norwich Spotlight. It wasn't confirmed, but now it is, which is very exciting. He still hasn't got his 2 assistant managers from Bristol City yet, but we await that with kind of fingers crossed. Obviously, Henry hasn't really had a time to address the news because he wasn't in the Norwich Spotlight. Henry, what are your initial thoughts on this appointment? Obviously, there's a lot of kind of fan divide. Where do you sit on the side of that fence?
Well, initially, I was a real fan of the Liam Manning appointment, but now I do have to echo my BBC Radio Norfolk colleague Chris Reeve. 100 points, 100 goals. I'm that in and invested in Liam Manning. I think the signings he's made so far to completely overhaul our defence and our goalkeeping positions, I think, is necessary. And he's shown just how much of a pull he can be in the signing of Harry Darling. For me, he would have been at the top of most Championship clubs' shopping lists this season. And the fact that he's opted to come to Norwich, I think, just speaks volumes about the position that we're in as a club, and and the ambition and intent that both Ben Knapper and Liam Manning have.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Obviously, we'll go on to the signings in a little bit more detail. Will, have your thoughts changed at all? Are you kind of any more optimistic, any more kind of pessimistic, or kind of same as your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I'm quite similar, to be honest with you, mate. I think it's a very, very wise appointment, and I think it'll get some stuff done for us. Whether how fast that would be, I'm still quite unsure about that. But for me, as we're probably going to discuss later, the biggest thing for me this summer is sorting that squad out, really. I think it's absolutely crazy. I think this summer, I don't think there's currently any Championship managers who actually still had their original manager from the start of last season. So it just shows really how quick football just turns, and maybe it can make it a advantage for Norwich, actually, because it's kind of more of like a even playing field as well. So look, we'll see how it goes. But for me, it's still quite a good appointment. But for me, the proof in the pudding with the players we sign.
And what you're saying there, Will, only one team springs to mind who started last season with the same manager as they've got now, and hopefully it'll be off to Brentford. So Fingers crossed.
Very good point. Thank you for correcting me, Henry.
Careful.
Play on, Ref. Play on.
Yeah, play on. Yeah, that's just a verbal warning. But yes, as Henry has alluded to, obviously one of the very many signings that we have made so far and are being strongly linked to is the signing of Cambridge-born Harry Darling. Obviously played with Liam Manning at MK Dons. Got to what was it? Yeah, they got to 11th with Swansea in the Championship last season, and was surprisingly available on a free, and kind of widely regarded as one of the best centre backs, sort of his age bracket in the Championship. Do you think, kind of for the position that Norwich are in, a team that finished 13th? To have outcompeted teams like Ipswich, Leeds, and Rangers, to have got his signature, is this not going to be a fantastic bit of business?
I think so, yeah. I don't see a world where Harry Darling doesn't work out. And I know you'll bookmark that for later, Jack. But yeah, I think it's such a good signing. And, you look at everything he did at Swansea, at MK Dons, he has really progressed. He's only, 25, 26, I think. So, yeah, he's still relatively young in terms of the age for a footballer. And he's going to be reaching his prime as well. So hopefully he can really kick on with Norwich. I think this is one of the ones where whenever a season ends and it's probably a disappointing season, Norwich fans always go, okay, well, here's my wish list on X. And this is one of the ones who Norwich fans would have put at the top of their shopping list. And the club have actually gone out and got him. So, yeah, I think it's such an inspired bit of business. And hopefully we can continue in that vein of form. We've also been linked with other exciting players as well. So, yeah, hopefully watch this space, and it could be a phenomenal transfer window. That being said, the last time I got this excited about a transfer window was probably in the summer of 2021 when Norwich were a Premier League side. And look how that turned out.
Yeah, very true. I think Henry's absolutely spot on as well there. I think for me as well with Darling, I think the biggest thing as well is that he can play on the left side of the defence and the right side of the defence as well. And that just gives us so much flexibility really in terms of replacing players if they go out of form maybe, or they get injured as well. So I think as well from that front, that's absolutely fantastic. And I think he is literally that kind of blueprint there, which I think will probably play every game this season as well, hoping obviously he stays fit as well. So I think I'm still so shocked that we managed to get him. The fact that he sees Norwich as an attractive club must say something about the board's ambitions as well, which is very, very encouraging. But for me, there's still so much work to do. But for me, in terms of like a marquee position and a marquee signing, wow, I was very, very impressed with that.
Yeah, and I think obviously Henry alluded to other signings that we are being linked to. It hasn't been announced yet, but again, by the time you're watching it, it probably has. Jakov Medic, I think I've pronounced that correctly, from Ajax for about £1.5 million, 26-year-old centre-back. Again, sort of same age bracket, same profile of player, goal-scoring centre-back. Which I love. Imagine giving Nick Stanley a goal-scoring centre-back. It's like giving a toddler a car key. But anyway, yes. No, obviously being linked with Medic. Obviously, Duffy and Cordoba still here. Hills and Adebayoga might still be in the squad. Lots of question marks over whether it is going to be that hallowed back three that Will absolutely fears. Do you think that's kind of a position that's kind of now pretty well kind of locked down? Or do you perhaps, is this actually showing the door to someone like Duffy or even Cordoba?
Well, for me, the way I see it, I think if we get the Medic deal over the line, which I understand is close, then I'd be very shocked if we signed any more centre-backs. I think Cordoba, to get him last summer, yes, he didn't come with much experience, to be honest, playing in the Bulgarian league, but he was still seen as a big signing for the club and a player who could really develop. So it would shock me if they accepted an offer for him and threw away that project they're trying to build with Cordoba within the space of a year. I know it was a Johannes Torup signing, but of course Ben Knapper would have still been instrumental in bringing Cordoba to the club. So for me, I'd be very shocked if he left, but that's just my opinion. And in a way, the same with Shane Duffy. I know he's a player who us Norwich fans have been easily to criticise over the past 12 months or so. But in my opinion, he was our best centre-back last season. There were times when if it was Cordoba and Duffy playing next to each other, Duffy would be the standout defender. And Jack, we were at that Millwall game. It was a disastrous game. One of the only players who I think could have held their head high was Shane Duffy. And for me, if he's a third choice, fourth choice centre-back and has to play 10, 15 games, I don't see the problem there, because it's a assured defender there with experience. It would be like when Grant Hanley was frozen out of the Norwich team in the Championship when we were doing well. If it gets to 65, 70 minutes and you need fresh legs in defence, you know that they're going to come on and probably do a job for you. So yes, Duffy, isn't the greatest defender in the world, but I'd be shocked if he doesn't stay at the football club. And I think he probably deserves that based on how he performed last season. Does he deserve to start every game? No, I'm not saying that. And that's why we've brought in Medic. And that's why we've brought in Harry Darling, because they are the two who I think are going to be sure starters for the entirety of the season, should they stay fit. But, if they get a suspension or they get injured, having Shane Duffy come in and fill some of those games, I don't think would be a bad thing, personally.
I'm really sorry, Henry, but I'm going to have to question you about that Shane Duffy statement. I personally thought last season Callum Doyle was probably our best defender over the course of the season. I think Shane Duffy's level of performance was probably very, very strong, probably up until Christmas. But I probably think since that maybe Sunderland away game, I'd probably say I think since then he's been quite inconsistent and a bit... and just not really giving us that kind of level of performance each week after that kind of after those games past Christmas. So I would personally think Callum Doyle was probably our best defender last year, and I just think probably the way that Shane Duffy kind of maybe deteriorated slightly towards the back end of last season, I'll definitely be encouraged to try and sell him this summer if we can. That's going to be a definite task in itself, but sorry to question you there, Henry. But
no, you're right.
Give you a question back, mate, please do. But
you're right. But no, I was just going to say last season with Duffy, the point I was trying to make was he was very inconsistent. I don't think that's a disservice to him. He was inconsistent, but he was our first choice centre back. Callum Doyle did play centre back, but was also filling in at left back sometimes. Cordoba was suspended or injured some of the time as well. So Shane Duffy was seen as the main centre back for Norwich. And it's a position that he didn't necessarily hold down. If we presume that the Medic deal will go through, which I think it will, then we're going to have two clear outstanding candidates before Shane Duffy. And I think having Shane Duffy just in and around the squad could potentially be a good thing. I don't think there's any harm in that, because to me as well, don't get me wrong, if I had the choice to sell Duffy or sell Cordoba, I'd probably sell Duffy. But based on last season and performance levels, Duffy was still better than Cordoba. So having those two in and around, still hopefully developing Cordoba as well as a defender, but having him learn off Duffy as well as learning off Darling and off Medic as well, I think could benefit all four of those defenders. So I think just having him around, not as a starter, but just having him around the squad could actually be quite a good thing for Norwich and for Shane Duffy himself. But look, he'll still probably think, I know he's in his 30s now, but he'll still probably think he could do a job starting for a Championship side. And if he believes that, then yeah, why not let him go?
Yeah, Go on. Sorry, you go, Jack. You go, mate.
was going to say, I take umbrage with your comment. I'm in my 30s. Uh, yeah, the sentiment of experienced heads being in and around the dressing room, and we obviously sort of pointed out that in January, a lot of experienced heads left the dressing room. And as Will has said, and we've said previously, collectively performances dropped since Christmas. Don't know if you can link it to, there being a lack of sort of leadership and presence in the dressing room. But I guess, the other side of the coin is the finances, which say that Shane Duffy's one of our highest earners. Do we just keep our highest earner around, to play Gillingham away in the cup and to shout at Mahovo when he doesn't cut out across? It's obviously tricky, and in our situation, obviously what we're proving with the Atanasios is that we can actually compete with other championship clubs, and that finances, we're not scraping pennies, but perhaps business sense. Someone like Shane Duffy, who isn't playing and is one of our highest earners, that's a tricky situation. And then the flip side of the coin is try and sell him. Again, it's going to have to be a similar sort of ilk of club, where he would be a starter but could also afford him, whether that's somewhere up in Scotland or another championship team. Has he shown enough to warrant a move elsewhere? Yeah, that's a tricky situation. I think what's becoming clear now is that there are positions and players that we are arguably needing to move on. Obviously, on that subject, our dear friend George Long, without really kind of saying anything concrete or anything like written down, George Long's Norwich career is now essentially over by the signings that we've made in the goalkeeping positions with Grimshaw and what was his name? I've forgotten his name. Louis Molden. That was him. I've got it written down here. For Crystal Palace to be our second and third choice keeper. Bit weird to go for the second and the third before the first, but there we go. Thoughts on the signings? Obviously, Will, you might have seen Louis Molden play in under 23 or under 21 matches. Obviously, Grimshaw was at the Manchester City Academy for a very long time. Any sort of overly interesting thoughts or feelings on these two signings? Do you think they will be an improvement between the sticks?
Well, like I said, I think it's refreshing that a manager's come in and seen just how bad Norwich were last season and probably realised that it was our defence and our goalkeeping that cost us a place in the top six and wants a complete overhaul. So I think signing both Grimshaw and Molden, what I will say about Molden, the fact that we've signed him and he's happy to come as a third choice, having had League One experience last year, is a massive statement. So I'm really happy with that. Dan Grimshaw, again, I don't know. Like, Norwich scored 6 goals past him last season when he was at Plymouth. So I don't know. But as a number 2, he can't really do any worse than George Long. And, I've said my piece about George Long, especially when he signed that new 3-year deal. But I do feel a bit sorry for him. But yeah, the writing was on the wall for him. You cannot perform like that, how he did last season, and still expect to be at the football club in 6 months' time. It's ridiculous. So I wish George Long the best, but hopefully we can find a suitor, whether it's at championship level or lower, who will take George Long off our hands. And then, of course, we are in the market still for a first choice keeper. That needs to be crucial. We need to get that one right, because a lot was made of us letting Angus Gunn go in the summer. I personally think it was the right time for Gunn to go. I would have loved him to have signed a new deal and then Norwich tried to have sold him this summer. But I think it's the right time for him to go. So this one now coming in is crucial, because over the last 10, 15 years or so, whenever Norwich have really been competing either at the top end of the Championship or in the Premier League, they've had a solid goalkeeper behind them. And last season, it felt like the tide was almost changing in that department. So hopefully we can get the right goalkeeper, and we can get another good one to add to that string of good keepers that Norwich City Football Club are known for, really.
Yeah, for me, I can clearly see a vision here when Knapper, with the goalkeepers, obviously you see Grimshaw as a second choice and Molden as a third choice. As Henry said again, I was very surprised that Molden chose to come to us. He's a keeper that I've probably seen about 2 or 3 times play for Wolves and Palace, especially in the Under-21s league, and I was always very impressed with him. Makes a lot of very, very important saves within games as well. So from Norwich's perspective, that's great that I'm his third choice for sure. But in terms of like his own development as such, I was probably maybe thinking that he might get like a move to like a League One or League Two team, but obviously that isn't the case, and he's here with us, and he's here with us as well. So that's great. Then obviously Grimshaw as well. Although he had quite a difficult game, obviously against Norwich, that 6-1 game, I think probably that game the defenders and the midfielders were probably more the issue that day. But I think actually even the year before that, when he was at Blackpool, he was very, very good at this level as well. So I'm quite happy with that signing as a backup as well. But obviously that first choice goalkeeper is very, very important for us as well. Hopefully it's unreliable. Preferably I would like Summit maybe more like domestically for that role. Just where there's kind of like less like margin for error, because I think goalkeeper is so important. And if you go abroad again, I would just be a bit worried about like it might take them a bit of time to like settle in a little bit. So I'll be a bit worried for that department as well. But yeah, I'm pretty content with that goalkeeper situation at the minute.
And what I will say as well, we touched on George Long briefly there, but it's also been clear that Vicente Reyes and Dan Barden both probably had their futures away from the football club. With Vicente Reyes, friend of the channel, really nice guy, but his performances when he was thrust into the deep end, he probably didn't get those on merit. He probably was forced into that position because of how bad George Long was. So was he ready to play those games in the Championship that he did for Norwich? Probably not. So maybe going out on loan or being sold permanently to a League One or a League Two team might do Vicente Reyes good. The one I really do feel sorry for is Dan Barden, because when Barden was chucked into those games under Daniel Farker during that COVID season when we trounced the league title, I thought he held his own. I thought he looked really good between the sticks in the games that he did play. Just watching from afar. And obviously he had his cancer diagnosis. He's recovered from that, which is lovely, but still hasn't really been given a chance. Last season would have been perfect for that, and he still didn't get it. So with me, that's probably a bit of a kick in the teeth, because had he not got that diagnosis when he did, he probably would have kicked on and been a third choice or second choice goalkeeper at the club. So yeah, that one is a bit of a shame, and does hurt a bit that his future will probably lie elsewhere as well.
Yeah, and again, the just to reiterate what you guys have said, that first choice goalkeeping position really does feel like the most important signing of the summer. Henry, exactly like you said, pretty much every goalkeeper that we've had in the last 20, 30 years has legendary status. I can't really remember many seasons where we've kind of flitted from one keeper to a next. They tend to have quite an established tenure with us. And again, we're being linked to this goalkeeper, I think is Kovacevic, I think is how you pronounce it. Again, don't quote me. From Sporting. Again, that's the exact type of and profile of player that Will does not want. But we will wait and see. I think ultimately there's also a question mark over, this goalkeeping overhaul happened for a reason, because of what happened last season, as we've gone over. How much of that is to do with the personnel, or how much of that is to do with the coaching, which, Gunn went from statistically one of the best keepers in the division one season to last season being statistically one of the worst. Is that individual or is that coaching? I guess we'll find out this season. And I guess we'll find out if Liam Manning does indeed get his the correct coaches in. Let's not forget, we have also made another permanent signing, Jacob Wright, which is a bit of a boring permanent signing. He's already here, like he's just staying, like. But I mean, just to like briefly touch on it, we've waxed lyrical about this kid so much. I mean, is he, for you guys, regular starter next season, and definitely sort of the kind of replacement for Kenny McLean long term, do you think?
I think he has to be a starter. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. You look at the back end of last season, as we've already discussed, results did tail off. But one of the things that was unanimously agreed upon amongst the fan base was how good Jacob Wright was. He came in and was a proper breath of fresh air. And bear in mind as well, yes, there was a lot of changes in the goalkeeping department, whether unforced or not. There was also a lot of change in midfield as well. No one other than Kenny McLean, really, who's always going to have a position in that midfield. No one really nailed down that partnership next to him. And then Jacob Wright came in on loan, and it looked like that would change. He had some really good performances. So the fact that we were able to get him back on a permanent deal, I think is a really good bit of business. And he will play. He will start most games, I'm sure, and properly develop. And it's got me really excited for this coming season.
Yeah, I agree absolutely. Jacob Wright is absolutely brilliant to watch. Whether I see him as the McLean replacement, probably not. For me personally, I still want one midfielder to kind of take McLean's role for the long term. That isn't me saying that I want Kenny to go this season. It's more me wanting maybe Kenny to be maybe like a third choice or like a rotation player across the season. I just think, obviously, he might improve under a Manning for sure. Of course he could, but it just felt like to me that like last 15 games last year when he came back into the team, he just wasn't the same midfielder under Wagner, for example, like that as well. So for me personally, we've seen Man teams play at MK Dons, Oxford, etc. as well. There always seems to be like a two-man like pivot midfield there as well. So I'd be inclined to think, and also what I would like as well is a midfielder alongside Wright to really complement him in that way. I'm thinking maybe more someone that's got a bit more defensive qualities, a bit more box to box as well. So kind of like a similar ilk to like Jason Knight from Bristol City as well. So someone to that profile for me personally that can really be a regular in that position for me.
Someone with championship experience who's about 24, 25, 26, and has previously played under Liam Manning. Who knows? That might happen. But again, that does sound suspiciously sort of like our transfer strategy so far. Speaking of transfer strategy, obviously, we are very early in the transfer window. Well, actually, it opened and then closed and then reopened because Club World Cup. Have you all been watching the Sundowns versus Botafogo? Or no, I don't care.
Can't say I have.
I mean,
no.
No. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's good that we scrapped all those FA Cup replays, isn't it? But anyway, the transfer window, yes, it is reopened. Yay! So now we can go back and make some more business. Now, let's imagine a theoretical, magical scenario where Borja Sainz stays at Norwich City into next season. Bear with me. Josh Sargent stays at Norwich City. Again, magical. Didn't get called up for the America team. Though, so looks like his World Cup dream is dying. So he might as well just try and prove Pochettino wrong and stay at Norwich. Just saying. And Nunez stays as well. So three perfect, brilliant, fantastic players. Where else do we need to pad out this team? What should be currently not top of Ben Knapper's shopping list, because that's obviously Medic and then a goalkeeper. What should be like third or fourth on the list? Obviously, again, Sainz stays. We have Jurasek. He does exist. We have Elliot Miles, who I think plays for Norwich, but no one knows. Haven't seen him. And then apart from that, obviously, Onel's no longer with us. Henry, you can stop crying. We don't have Fastnat. All of a sudden, you kind of look around and it's like, oh, we don't actually have that many wingers or attackers. I mean, Cernats is kind of doing whatever he wants. Is the attack kind of the most important part, or should we get more centre backs? I think we should get more centre backs. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think we need another winger. You saw last season, yes, Sainz was on fire, but the other side was really up for grabs for the entire season. Cernats, there was a lot of discourse as to whether he was a winger or whether he was a striker, sort of similar to Josh Sargent. And it seems that if the club aren't willing to sign another wide-sided midfielder, that maybe they do see Cernats' future out there. But what I will say is that when our retained list came out, one of the big statements there was that the club remain in discussions with Lewis Dobbin, and he is someone I'd take back. I think another season-long loan for him would make the world of sense, because I think before his injury he did look like quite a good bit of business. So I'd love to have him back. Ideally, I know the club were working on it. I'm not sure if they still are. But for me, that would make sense because I know he stuck around a bit as well after his injury. So for me, that would make sense. But I saw a interview that the Pinkham boys did, and they said that Ben Knapper and Liam Manning don't necessarily see us signing wingers as a necessity this season, and I just cannot understand that. They said if Borja Sainz leaves, then they will have contingency plans in place, and that will obviously change things. But with Borja Sainz here, then it's not like the top of their priorities, and I just cannot understand that, because I think had we had an out-and-out winger, say someone akin to Jonathan Rowe last season, it maybe could have been a different story, and maybe we could have outscored our opponents even with that leaky defence.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll probably touch on the kind of like logistics of our shape literally shortly, and whether maybe it could be a 3-back or a 4-back next year, just due to that kind of winger kind of argument. But for me, I absolutely agree with Henry again. He's on fire today, despite that Duffy shout, of course. But anyway, as well as what Henry said, as literally I said earlier as well, I generally do think as well we need like another midfielder in there as well. I know we've got the likes of Samani, Marcon, etc. in that position. Maybe it's a bit bloated, but I think if you want someone there with maybe genuine quality to an extent, then I'll definitely be looking to get maybe like a box midfielder in there, or even maybe even a kind of like a more secure CDM who is probably very, very astute at winning kind of tackles in very, very important areas. Because for me, the biggest downfall for us last season was in those crunch moments when we got counterattacks on, we just lost all of our composure and shape. And we just seemed to be so easy to kind of play through. And I think if we had someone there who's very meticulous and knows what they're doing in those kind of situations, that would be so beneficial. I've seen maybe a bit of discourse about Jacob Wright kind of being that guy for us in CDM and kind of being that one in that deep role. But for me, we saw against Millwall and probably even more so against Portsmouth as well, that on his own in there, he just looked a bit too naive for me in those kind of really, really important scenarios. So if he can get someone alongside him, then I think that'd be absolutely fantastic for his development as well. So for me, as Henry said, wingers absolutely, they are a massive priority for me. I just can't see a world, especially like if we were to play a 4-2-3-1 next season, which obviously we're probably going to touch on in a second. And if Sainz goes, yes, we're going to get a replacement there. But you can't really rely on a Mate Euroset, really, can you, to kind of deliver over a 50-game season when he's been so kind of like injury kind of prone to an extent, really, across the last 6 months. So that, for me, is very, very concerning, because I want someone there who actually will provide some reliability. And I think if the club are thinking of a mindset here of, Gabe Forsyth, Oscar Schwartal, all of those guys could do those roles, then I'll be a bit sad and a bit concerned, actually, because I think those guys are much, much better centrally as well. So, look, time will tell what happens. But for me, I'm just very, very interested to see kind of what our main shape's going to be this season.
Yeah, definitely. And I think obviously Johannes Hoff-Torp brought lots of players in to fit his system and his sort of style of play. I mean, there's obviously, midfield players like Slimani and Forson, where you're kind of thinking, where do they kind of fit in all this? Obviously, in terms of the exact formation, Norwich fans, until really pre-season or the opening games, we're literally just going to be sort of dealing on kind of hearsay and I guess debating it on podcasts. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to talk about what we think is going to happen, because of course we know what we're talking about and we have insights. I mean, obviously a lack of wingers would kind of lean towards more of a, I guess, 5-3-2, but then that would leave Cernats and Sargent up front with no other real striker on the bench. I mean, do you think we currently have the right personnel for a five back? Do you see someone like Kellen Fisher being sort of a right wing back? I mean, Stacey more so, arguably. Chris Seni and Mahovo potentially on the left, but if they're kind of our main wide attacking assets, like do you see that as kind of, can we be successful with that start, or do you think we still, do you think we need to bring in other sort of personnel? Like if we all of a sudden bring in like a proper right wing back, will that be more indicative of like, oh, we're going to play this style of football? Henry, what do you think?
Well, what I think last season, obviously one of the standout performers for the club was Callum Fisher, and it was very much a narrative of Fisher or Stacey, whereas this season I think that's going to change. I think it's going to be Fisher and Stacey. There was a lot of games last season where Callum Fisher was played as a left back rather than a right back, and I think if they're comfortable with that, then he'll maybe nail down that left back position and then have Stacey on the right, because again, Stacey is one of those players who he'll give you a 6 out of 10 every single week. So having Stacey on that right and developing Fisher as a left back or a left wing back, we've definitely got those players. But again, this goes back to my previous point. If we are to play a back three, with given the fact that we probably will sign Medic, who's the other centre back? Because like I said, you probably would go with Jose Cordoba, but in terms of his recent performances, if he makes glaring mistakes and still hasn't improved, you go with Shane Duffy. So I think with that back three there, then hopefully that can be solid and we can be more defensive. But I think in terms of what would work best for Norwich would be to have a back four, because then as you said, Jack, then it would give more support to the strikers. And I've been someone who's been very supportive of Ante Cernats. I don't think he's been a flop, and I think yes, the money we spent on him was still quite a lot, but I think he will come good and he will repay that fee for us. However, if you're starting him up front with Sargent just by themselves and not really giving them any support, again, you're hindering Ante Cernats in terms of that growth. So having either a wingers and playing a front three, or having someone behind the striker and still playing with traditional wingers could be more beneficial for us going forward as well and scoring goals. Because yes, people forget, yes, people highlight how bad we were defensively, but we were still the second highest goal scorers in the league. So if going forward that formation isn't broke, then there's no need to fix it.
I think it's a very, very cryptic situation Norwich have had, because I feel like the personnel right now, I think it probably leans more towards a 3-4-2-1 shape, where we almost have like a box midfield with the likes of what's basically what Man did at Bristol City, really, when he had the likes of Mehmeti, Twine, then kind of behind them it was Max Bird and obviously Jason Knight. And I just think if you think about our multitude of midfielders, I'll give you Gabe Desai, Emmanuel Forson, Oscar Schwartz, Stamani, Marcondes, etc. you've got so many players there that can kind of fill those kind of like different central roles. And I think that could be kind of how Man starts off the season, I think, as like a gut instinct. But then for me, I think the issue which Norwich had with that is what you said, Jack, and what you said, Henry, as well, is that kind of first central defender in obviously Cordoba, if he doesn't improve, or even maybe Medic or Dolan starts slowly, you then have to maybe go for Brad Hills or Adaviega or McConville. And obviously, I would be fine with that. But I think more for me, it would be that kind of wing back scenario, because I'm not convinced Ben Sunny probably is a wing back. I think that'd probably be more Mahubu's kind of style. But even so, with Kenneth Fisher as well. Kenneth Fisher is absolutely fantastic, and he can play so many kind of like different roles. But I'm not quite sure he's like that Max Aarons ilk where he's so kind of attacking orientated. I think he's more of a complete wing back. So there for me, I'm kind of thinking, will that actually work, or will that actually be very successful? I'm not too sure. So then maybe you kind of flip that, and maybe you might want to go to like a 4-2-3-1 and that kind of thing. But the issue there is, as we said earlier, we ain't kind of got enough depth to play that formation. And then again as well, I've not actually got a very good, genuine kind of attacking midfielder. But then again, you've also got about like 25 billion or so like midfielders there already. So like it's just such a kind of cat and mouse thing right now. And I just think I don't know if there's like enough clarity for me yet, and kind of like what's actually going to happen as well. And what I will say as well, I think a very, very big factor, especially with Norwich in the Championship, is that the fans want to see a team who entertains and stuff like that. And if that three-back shape, it might be getting us wins, etc. like that. But if that three-back shape is a bit pragmatic, a bit too slow, then I think fans probably won't maybe take on board with that as well. I think we all know after the Dean, Fifth and Wagner kind of days that it almost feels, of course we want our team to win, but it feels like entertainment is such a big thing for us as supporters. So Manning has got so much kind of things to kind of balance out and kind of see like the right combinations, and it just feels like to me, as well as that as well, like we only got 4. I think this year we only got about 4 preseason friendlies. I think like last year we had about 8, so there really isn't much time for those kind of like combinations to kind of build and those kind of formations to really start to flow really. So although the fans want quite a strong start to the season and kind of quick fire out of the blocks, I'm not too sure. I think it's going to take us a bit of time to really try and find our best team and best shape.
I think I'd be surprised if we're the second highest scorers in the division this season. But again, what have we all said was our problem from last season? It was conceding goals. So, probably a more defensive shape is probably, something to try. Not that, all of, the main stand is going to completely just moan and groan and boo when there's a back 5 and playing it out from the back. I imagine the anger. But yeah, I mean, in a kind of weird 3-back, 5-back, I weirdly see like a Schwartau doing sort of a job out wide, and I also weirdly have visions of Forsen potentially fitting into a wide full-back position. I think he has played surprisingly at full-back previously, but he's never really pinned down his position this season. Maybe one for him to experiment at pre-season. I remember we were playing Elliot Bennett at right back at one point. What a man, by the way. What a man. Obviously we sort of speak about players from last season fitting in this season. Obviously, Cernats had a very good sort of end to the season before his injury. Continuous links to Borussia Dortmund, because clearly they're shopping in the Championship for some reason. It kind of makes you think, well, hang on, maybe like statistically we have got a decent player on our hands. Obviously, Josh is still here. And again, we'd all love him to be here. And again, there is a scenario where there could be a front 2 with a midfield or whatever. Do you think kind of this will be his season to crack on as a number 9? Or do you even foresee a situation where he is still experimented in a wide position?
I think that all depends as to what formation we play, really. If he's more comfortable with a back 3, then maybe we will see him as that striker. But if the club are are under the belief that we don't really need any wingers. I still see Antti Sienats as someone who's probably looking to start every week for Norwich. So that will probably have to be from the wing. Of course, that is unless we sell Josh Sargent. And what I will say, last season, I think it was clear that I think we could get away with losing Borja Sainz, but losing Josh Sargent would be the real kick in the teeth. Now I almost think it's reversed because, as you said, if you've got teams like Borussia Dortmund looking at Antti Sienats, then there's clearly a player there. I think anyone who's seen him play knows that there's clearly a player in there somewhere. And selling Josh Sargent might be really good for his development. You know, he's had a year here now to really bed in and to score goals. So hopefully he can really kick on. However, if we lose Borja Sainz and then only bring in one winger, that could be disastrous for Norwich. So I actually think in terms of who is more valuable for Norwich, that those have probably been flipped based on the business we've done this summer.
Yeah, I think with Cernak, for me, I'm just trying to kind of think of the pros and cons to maybe kind of like him as a player really for us. I just still had that gut feel for me. And I don't know if it's maybe me being a bit too unfair. Potentially, probably is many supporters here, but I just don't get the feeling that Cernak can just take that to that kind of striker role and kind of like do it on a weekly basis. I just still think he still needs a bit more kind of growth and a bit more time to really kind of hone his skills. But then again, Norwich spent probably north about £10 million for him as well. So obviously, fans rightly want to see some more output, and that's obviously fair to think that. Look, I think Cernak definitely improved probably from about February onwards. So I'd probably even say from that moment he scored against Blackburn to probably the end of the season, I thought he was pretty impressive. But I just don't get the feeling. Obviously, there's always like comparisons to Sargent and kind of how he kind of went from the right wing to the striker position. And obviously, yeah, that's quite an accurate kind of thing to conclude. But I just don't think Cernak has got the mental kind of strength to really kind of be that kind of out and out striker for the club. I think there might be some weeks where like he might chop and change, maybe like a backup striker that comes into the building. I'm not too sure, but for me, definitely, I think the main plan was for Cernak to kind of when obviously Josh does leave the club, which obviously probably will happen this summer. He was supposed to be that guy to obviously take us forward, and I just don't know whether his kind of quality probably will match kind of Norwich's kind of like pedigree of club to an extent, because we're a club that's going to like challenge for the playoffs, and I'm just not quite sure whether Cernak can kind of score enough goals for him to be a regular in that position. I could be wrong. I probably will be wrong, but it just feels like to me it's more like mentally. It feels like Cernak is a kind of player that kind of needs like constant support and guidance, and I just feel at times that might kind of hinder a little bit, and I think he might be at times a bit isolated up there as well. I worry as well with Cernak, especially when he had played that last season as well. I thought like his overall performance was quite under par as well. So I just think personally, obviously strikers cost so much money, of course they do, but I'm just not convinced he's that guy to probably take us forward in the long term for me. But look, I could be wrong, and I hope I am wrong, but I just don't have the gut feel and confidence that he could be our main man going forward.
Liam Manning made Narky Wells look like prime Henri. He can do magic. He's going to cook. Trust me. I don't trust me. I have no idea. We have no idea. We have absolutely no clue what the formation will be, who else we're going to sign. It is, of course, fixtures next week, and then we've got
next Tuesday, I believe. So hopefully the next time we do a podcast, then we know who will be playing when. So
yeah, and we know one of the teams that will be playing.
Well, we know all the teams will be playing.
Oh yes, no. Well, of course. Well, I was more referencing that team down the road that Will's quite excited to. But let's not talk about them. Let's finish off this podcast as we always do with our delightful quick fire hot takes. And the mention of fire right now is not good. I need air conditioning. Right. The way that we're going to do this, I've got 3, and Will has got 2. So why don't we alternate it? I'll do mine first, and then you, William, and then me, and then you, and then me. How about that? Does that make sense? Yeah, we'll do that. Fantastic. My first quickfire hot take. What is your... I'll say, okay, what is your favourite long-range Norwich goal? Not necessarily the best, your favourite.
I think for me, obviously, I didn't support Norwich during the time when Safi scored that goal, but that looked an absolute wonder goal for me. But I'm just going to go for Tetty. I'm sorry. Sunderland, of course.
Russell Martin versus Brighton.
Great shout.
Yes, that was an absolute weldy, wasn't
Great
it?
shout.
Great shout. Yeah.
Great shout. I had one in my head. I think one that I always come back to was Wes's goal in that drubbing of Nottingham Forest. Obviously, Howson gets the plaudits for that volley, but I swear Houlihan's goal was so good that it injured the goalkeeper. But yeah, I don't know. That one's good.
The hipster's favourite goal from that game is the Houlihan goal. Definitely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's a great finish. William, what was your first quickfire hot take?
Yeah, so I've actually seen it on X quite a lot this last week, and I thought I'd bring it to you guys as well. What was the one game which you probably just were just there, literally just just absolutely just distraught at half an hour after the game, and just couldn't speak because you're just so annoyed and sad about the result?
Oh, I don't know. Probably Chelsea, the 7-1 defeat.
That's a
whatever it was.
Yeah,
I think it was 7-0. I don't think we scored.
7-0.
Don't give
yeah, 7-0.
Can I just say Ben Gibson was absolutely superb that day, wasn't he?
I have two. One is the Newcastle 4, Norwich 3 when they scored 2 in added time. That was literally just. I remember Emma sat next to me. She was just like, "Are you okay?" I'm just like, "No, just give me a minute. I can't." And the other one was Norwich 0, Sunderland 3 when Allardyce and his crew turned up. Because that was
by the way, wasn't it? He just literally just turned into prime Lamine Yamal, didn't he? He was absolutely fantastic that day, wasn't he? Annoyingly.
Yeah, it was. That was a very long train journey home on my own, all the way back to Southend. And then when I got back to Southend, I'd heard that Newcastle, who we were in the relegation battle with, had just beaten, I think it was Swansea, and it was literally just I had this clapper in my hand, and it's just what is the point in anything right now? William, what's the one that springs to your mind?
Mine is so random, but I must have been quiet for a good about 24 hours after the game. It was actually in our last Premier League campaign, and we just got turned over by Watford by 3-1, and I just left that game just so soulless because we were so embarrassingly bad that day. I think obviously we had an absolutely horrible run in, and that was the game we actually needed to win just to try and keep afloat. And I was just yeah, we're literally gone in game week 5 here. I was just I just can't speak because I'm just sad about us getting relegated again. So for me, that's my one.
I do remember that one. What was his name? Dennis did the front flip after he scored, and Ismail Assar tore us a new one. I do agree that felt like the early nail in the coffin. That was just yeah. And then a couple of weeks later, it was Dean Smith's Aston Villa 5-1. That was,
goodness me, yeah, that's up there.
Let's not continuously list terrible results. We could be here all night. Which Norwich player is most likely to get sunburn? Mostly because it's 32 degrees.
Great question. I reckon the profile we're looking out for here is just someone that just absolutely loves a drink during a kind of an off-season kind of environment, and will just stay in a sun all day with some beers. I wonder who that could be in the MFW team. Anyway, And who could that person be? I reckon Borja signs, He loves it, doesn't he? I'll go Borja.
He's Spanish. Like, he won't get sunburnt.
Yeah, but I think if I'm going to follow my narrative, it probably will be Borja in that case. So, but who's the English version of the character that I'm trying to describe? Maybe Kenny to an extent, or he loves it during an off-season break. Ashley Barnes, perhaps.
That famous English player, Kenny McLean.
Yeah, Scottish player. Yeah, same thing, innit? Not sorry to offend any English/Scottish viewers who have offended there. That's just me, a terrible communicator, as per. Yeah, I'm going to be bored. I'm going to go Ashley Barnes.
Well, I'm going to go for someone who actually still does play for Norwich and someone who is English as well. I'm going to go for Kellen Fisher just because his mum will be in charge of the sun cream lotion and might forget to give it to him because he's so young. He probably can't reach the cupboard where it is. So yeah, I'll go for Kellen Fisher.
No, that's nasty. Sorry, Mrs. Fisher.
He's our star boy, Henry. That's a red card for me. What about you?
We do love Kellen Fisher here. Kellen, if you're listening, I love you, mate. But you do look about 12.
Fantastic.
Sergeant, because he's got fair hair and light skin. That's pretty obvious. I mean, obviously, Will touched on players who perhaps might not, might drink a lot. Obviously, please do drink responsibly. But somewhere where you can drink responsibly is the Fat Cat and Canary. Thank you, of course, for supporting us throughout this wonderful season. Yes, Fat Cat and Canary, go there. I'm sure it's got a lovely. Has it got a garden?
It has got a garden. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah,
it's on the river, isn't it?
At the front. Well, it's as you drive up Thorpe Road towards the river. So yeah, why not have a stroll along the river and then pop into the Fat Cat and Canary?
Exactly. Go on, William. What's your second quickfire hot take?
But I've got quite a fun one here personally. If Norwich ever had the opportunity for someone who currently plays for the club, or obviously in our history, to wear the number 99 shirt for a season, what player should take that opportunity and wear that shirt?
Someone who's a bit up themselves, but could also back it up. So someone like Borja Sainz, I feel, would be a perfect 99 for Norwich.
This has Kyle Lafferty written all over it. He was already 9, but just to go, for another 9. I did rate how Gary Hooper at Celtic was 88.
I was going to say that. Yes, he was, wasn't he? Yes.
It's a shame that he wasn't allowed to be 88 in England. I think. What is the limit? I swear you can have any number up to 100. Or do they?
Well, Trent was 66 throughout his stay at Liverpool, wasn't he? So.
Yeah, and Declan Rice is 41. Stupid number. That's got Kyle Lafferty written all over it. My final quickfire hot take. I can't remember if I've asked this one or not because I don't care. I'm going to ask it anyway. I want your Norwich City Mount Rushmore. I want 4 players on. William, you understand the concept, though, don't you? You know what Mount Rushmore is, yes?
Maybe.
It's a mountain in America that has all the presidents' heads on it, and basically,
it has 4 presidents' heads on it.
4 presidents, not all of them. It has four of the more important ones, and it's basically like, who would you say are the 4 most important players if Norwich were to do their own Mount Rushmore? Henry, you understand.
I do.
Can Henry go first in that case?
So mine would definitely be. This might be controversial. Grant Holt and Wes Hoolahan, because they're the 2 players that made me fall in love with the club. So they'd definitely be on there. Timu Pukki would also be on there because he was a goal machine. And the 4th one is either between Buendia or Cameron Jerome. But I think because of that goal at Wembley, I'm going to give it to Jerome. So for me, Jerome, Pukki, Holt, and Wes Hoolahan.
Okay, so I understand now. Don't you worry, guys. for me, it has to be Holt and Wes. I literally grew up watching them. I feel like it's only right we have to get like an absolute like folk or like legend in there because that's just like literal Norwich heritage. So I'll go for Jeremy Goss if I can, and as well, I really want to see the kind of the romance in me wants to kind of commemorate Emmy and put him on there, but I want to go for a bit of kind of a player that I just thought was an absolute cult hero. I want to go Zimbo. Let's get Zimbo on there. He deserves it.
Okay. I was going far more traditional, like far more oldie worldy. So like Johnny Gavin, who's the number one top goal scorer, he probably should as being the top. Kevin Keelan probably should be on there for the most appearances. So there's your two. I think Gossi needs to be on there for not just Munich, but that season generally. And then it's a question of like a player that epitomises modern Norwich. So that it is between Holty and Pookie. I think Pookie probably is more iconic globally. I think more people know Norwich because of Pookie than know Norwich because of Grant Holt.
And I think controversial. I think he was the better player as well.
Different styles, definitely. That if you were to make me pick between the two, I mean, would Pookie thrive under Paul Lambert and Wes Hoolahan? Just imagine prime Hoolahan and prime Pookie. Oh my god! Imagine prime Wendia on the right with Wes in the middle.
Henry, take your lawnmower by the way, mate.
Huh?
Yeah. So outside, there's someone just cutting the grass. So yeah, I do apologise for that.
Well, it's a good thing.
What's his name? Shout him out for our lovely listeners and watchers.
I have no idea what his name is. He's employed by the council, so yeah, well, no idea.
If you watch this video, we appreciate him, and hopefully he's a Norwich fan, and I'm sure he is. And I think Jack, if you could end it as I got a terrible hay fever, that'd be absolutely fantastic.
This podcast has devolved into complete nonsense, but it's a good thing that we've come to the end of it now. Thank you all for listening. If you've made it this far, well done. Please remember to like and subscribe and comment and share and all those wonderful things. Obviously, Norwich will have lots of other new signings that we will inevitably give you updates on the channel. We will have more podcasts, so please do keep listening to us over the summer, and then obviously once the pre-season starts, the real fun will begin. Obviously, thank you for listening, and we will see you very soon.